just a few, I'm going to try to summarize some complex topics in just a few moments. And to sort of piggyback on NIS stories and profound observations he offered to us. What I want to talk to you this morning about, I want to be straight. Not in the sense some of you might think, but I want to speak straight about trusting God. Because every one of you, in one way or another, has suffered deeply. There are people in this room who have suffered despicable acts, been the victims at the hands of terrible oppression of the human spirit. And you know of others in your lives, and it doesn't take much to find people who have really suffered. And surely we all ask ourselves, what is the meaning of this? For me, it comes down to one statement of Baha'i. He says, I swear by my life, nothing save that which profiteth them can befall my loved ones. I swear by my life, nothing save that which profiteth them can befall my loved ones. Now I know some of you. You probably think there's an exception because you have in your mind who the loved ones are. So let me remind you that Baha'u'llah says, I loved my creation, hence I created thee. Thee means you. So everyone is the loved ones. So if you accepted yourself when you heard me say this the first time, please include yourself now as I repeat it. I swear by my life, nothing save that which profiteth them can befall my loved ones. And I have reminded us that those who have suffered at the hands of the oppressors have great rewards in the next world. So I'm not going to remind you of that or go on about that. But what about in this world? One of the things that I have seen over and over again this weekend is that not only the resilience of the human spirit, but how profound tests bring about profound transformation. And so I'm going to share with you a portion of a letter from abdu'l-baha to Corinne True, who, as you know, suffered profound sorrows and difficulties in her life. She suffered the loss of many children. She was appointed by abdu'l-baha to be the head of the Temple Unity when the Baha'is were still of a generation that didn't understand women participating at that level. And the men who served with her resisted her at every step. You know, when abdu'l-baha laid the cornerstone that day in that meadow outside of Chicago, he arrived late. There was a beautiful tent arranged, and all the people, of course, had arrived early, and they waited, and they waited, and they waited, and abdu'l-baha arrived late. And it was certainly no coincidence, I'm sure, in the divine plan, that Corinne True also arrived late, and they arrived at the same time. And as she was getting out of her conveyance, abdu'l-baha strode over to her. They're still not anywhere near the tent. The friends are watching. And he grabbed her hand, and he took her for a walk away from everyone else. And they walked over onto the bridge that's over the canal near there. And they had a long talk, privately. He spoke to her. And later, he sent her this letter. And this portion of the letter is very dear to my heart, and I'm sure it's familiar to many of you. He says, the more difficulties one sees in the world, the more perfect one becomes. The more you plow and dig the ground, the more fertile it becomes. The more you cut the branches of the tree, the higher and stronger it grows. The more you put the gold in the fire, the purer it becomes. The more you sharpen the more sorrows one sees, the more perfect one becomes. That is why in all times the prophets of God have had tribulations and difficulties to withstand. The more often the captain of a ship is in a tempest and difficult sailing, the greater his knowledge becomes. Therefore, abdu'l-baha says to her, and it's published, so now it's to you. Therefore, I am happy that you have had great tribulations and difficulties. For this, I am very happy that you have had many sorrows. Strange it is that I love you, and still I am happy that you have had sorrows. You know, dear friends, everything about the faith is about 185 degrees different than what we've been taught to believe, isn't it? And we live in a culture that looks at people who have sorrows and difficulties as if they are failing in their lives. Yet abdu'l-baha says here, and you see it in the Seven Valleys, where Baha'u'llah says, the steed in the valley of love is pain, and if there be no pain, this journey will never end. You see Shoghi Effendi saying, life is a constant struggle. So if your life is a constant struggle, you must be doing it right. You see, everything in the writings is different from how you've been trained and what the outside world says. And I think we bring that into our relationship with God and with each other, and mostly with ourselves. So if you can replace your view of your own life, which has had sorrows and difficulties, where you have been pruned and ground, subjected to the fire to be purified, and remember these words of abdu'l-baha, strange it is that I love you. I love you. I love you. And still I am happy that you've had sorrows. Perhaps in those moments when you are in quiet despair, wondering if you'll ever grow past whatever it is that you're struggling with, you can recall those words. Now, I quoted Baha'u'llah at the beginning saying, I swear by my life, nothing save that which profiteth and can befall my loved ones. And I've described to you a little bit about what that means now, that it's all the trials and troubles that cause us to grow. But I want to speak, go a little bit more deeper in that first quote, and ask you, I don't want you to answer out loud, because although this is a pretty honest group, I really want you to be honest with yourself. Do you think this is a safe world? Now, most of you will say no. And some of you will say yes. Most of you might say no. And then I would say, I asked myself this question in response to, I swear by my life, nothing save that which profited them can befall my loved ones. And I said, but stuff happens. Things happen to me, to other people. Terrible things happen. How can that be true? And then I said, okay, so I have to ask myself, do I think this world is a safe place? And if my answer is no, the next observation is frightening. Because if a loving God created us and put us here in the traffic, in a dangerous place, what kind of a loving Father is that? And how can I believe in Him? And how can I trust in Him? You know, this is really foundational, I think, for all of us. So if we look at it in another way, the world is not safe outwardly. It isn't supposed to be safe outwardly. Outwardly it is fire and vengeance. Inwardly it is light and mercy. So what I understand now, having gone through that sort of philosophical dialogue with myself many years ago, is this is a place where everything that is needed for the development of your soul is provided to you in equal plenitude. All of the dangers, all of the struggles, all of the sorrows, all of the oppression, all of the everything, the worst and the best of this world is all designed for the growth of your soul. And nothing save that which profiteth them can befall you. No one can hurt your soul. No thing done to you or your loved ones can harm your soul. No one can hurt your soul. They might hurt your feelings, they may offend your heart, they might work stuff with your psyche, they may put you in therapy for years, but that's not your soul. None of that is your soul. That's all part of this transient world. So outwardly it is fire and vengeance, but inwardly it is light and mercy is the truth. No one can hurt your soul except you. And we heard abundantly this morning that forgiveness is on. One other thing I want to mention in light of this, and then I'll wrap this up. You know, I have struggled with why, the whole concept of tests and difficulties. And I know a lot of Baha'is have prayed for tests. I am not a believer in that. Frankly, I think Baha'u'llah is in charge of what tests should come my way. I don't need to ask him and interfere with his plan. And so I got my share, I get my share, you do too. But some of you intrepid souls ask for more. Maybe I'll develop to that point. But what I understand from something I read that abdu'l-baha said, quoting the Bab, really helped me put these tests into perspective, and I want to share that with you. Abdu'l-baha says the more one is severed from the world, from desires, from human affairs and conditions, the more impervious does one become to the tests of God. Who wouldn't you like that? And then he goes on and explains the whole testing mechanism. Tests are a means by which a soul is measured as to its fitness and proven out by its own acts. God knows its fitness beforehand. After all, it was God that created you. And also its unpreparedness. But man with an ego would not believe himself unfit unless proof were given him. Consequently, his susceptibility to evil is proven to him when he falls into the test. Have you noticed that?
Yes.
Yeah. It's amazing, isn't it? And the tests are continued until the soul realizes its own fitness. I imagine all of us have also had that experience, where it finally registers our own unfitness. Then, remorse and regret tend to root out the weakness. I'm describing the process, Abdu'l-Baha's describing the process. But then, listen to this. The same test comes in greater degrees. I've always wondered why the tests seem to run in themes. You know, again, and you, I know, have noticed that too, because this seems to be a universal law. So he says, the same test comes again in greater degrees, until it is shown that a former weakness has become a strength. And the power to overcome evil, remember evil is the absence of good, right? So the power to overcome an absence in yourself has been established. So friends, when you see yourself or others in a testing process, when you begin to see the pattern and understand that theme, you have a window into a future strength. Because he doesn't say probably will, or might, or if you're good, or, if God is kind, or any of that. He says the power to overcome evil has been established. See, this is the process. So all that pruning, cutting, burning, grinding, plowing that we go through is all part of nothing save that which profited them can befall my loved ones. There isn't a thing that can happen to any of us that isn't going to benefit our soul and prepare us for that time when we leave this earthly realm with all of its sorrows and tribulations and trials, and ascend to a place where none of these tests exist. Thank goodness it's only this phase of our life that we go through that. And it prepares us for the next world. So I want to close by saying it has been a great pleasure for me to join you in your path this weekend. I felt very much at home. You know, one of the things about your experience here that you love is how real we are with one another. We talk about the real things of life. Every Baha'i, no matter what their particular pattern of testing is, yearns for this same thing. And I see a strength in your ability to be real that you bring into your own communities. And I encourage you to have the courage to gradually nurture that in the friends around you who may not share the same struggles, but share the same process. Because this process of testing is the process for everyone. We here may have identified specific tests. We know what ours look like. But everyone is going through the same process. And nothing save that which profited them can befall my loved ones is the truth.